All right. Excuse me. Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Mid-hit. Sorry about that.
Hang on, we'll join you.
Rick Thompson.
It's a right way to start the show. Coughing. Sure, yeah.
And, well, for cannabis. By way of cannabis. So. And to start off, we have Josey and Katie with us, and we're going to get into recent events with Josey and amidst some other things and celebrate some good news in her life. And it's perfectly appropriate, and I'm excited to be able to get into it and start talking about some stuff. So I don't know what kind of banter we might have. We typically kind of talk about some shit when we get started on the show, but you guys are here now and we're all excited. And so, if you don't mind, Katie, Greenstem, many good things. You've been on the show before, and as people are familiar, but if you don't mind, just to give a background on this project and how it got put into motion and how we end up with a vehicle in the driveway that we're going to check out in a little bit for Josey.
Oh man. So I don't know. Josey's not only my neighbor, right? Like she literally lives 4 minutes down the road from me, but she's also one of my best friends. She's somebody that I spend a tremendous amount of time of my personal time with. And as we all know in the industry, every single one of us are incredibly busy, and there's all the excuses in the world to be able to just wind down and have an outside life. And aside from a family business, not being able to separate that, Josey is somebody that's in my personal life as well. And not just Josey, like her daughter Cadence is one of my kids' best friends. And Brenda is absolutely one of my mentors. Like I love this family, and through that, my family, my father, my mother, my brother, Michael Zachary, all of our managers, these relationships build. And then when we were out at events and everything over the last year, we kept having these wonderful community members and Josey's friends come and be like, hey, I want to do something. And it just kept happening over and over and over again. And it was just like, I think we can make an impact. We just have to get everybody kind of on the same page. Somebody has to do it. Someone has to start it. And I went to Josey last winter and asked, hey, if I did something, do I have your permission? Like, what do you want? Because this isn't about like fulfilling my need, because I don't want to see you in pain. And I want to be where everyone else is, like you say. And I want to go to the MICIA and like, I want to hang out with you everywhere. I want to go to these events with you everywhere. And especially stay in the hotels and be comfortable. And like, the van came first. Like, we've got big dreams and hopes for a house next, but the van is first. And we went to the store. Like, we did everything. We went to like brand new dealerships. We have a guy that owns a Honda dealership that was going to give it to us at cost. Like, we had all these hookups and everything like that, but we needed education first, right? Like, right. So we reverse engineered the situation, and it was like, what's best for you and your family's needs? And that's where like the journey started. And we figured out how much everything was going to be. And like, you had been saving for a minute. Yeah. For a minute, getting ready for this. And it was just like the push that, like, I don't know if even that's the right word. I don't know if I would call it a push.
It's been the plan to be, a present parent, right? In so many ways. I talk about present parenting when we talk about expungement, and the ability to go on field trips, and the ability to go on daddy-daughter dances, and the ability to do all these things. And I think that, I've spent so much time rejecting the wheelchair in the beginning, and so much time trying to prove that I am just like everybody else, that, I've reached barriers where I'm not, and seeing it reflected with my child was really difficult. And so when I started on my journey, which was, I want to be a good mom. I want to be a present mom for my daughter. The first thing I wanted to do was get a wheelchair, and getting a wheelchair is more than just being disabled, right? It is a series of things. And the wheelchair that I had gotten through my insurance company The wheelchair that I had gotten through my insurance company would not get into my driveway. It was like most things from Medicaid was not what I needed. And so we actually went to the black market and bought a wheelchair. And then the problem was the wheelchair was 400 pounds. I could get everywhere, but I could not get the wheelchair anywhere. Which Adam loves this issue as well. This is something that we both experienced at Hash Bash, which is okay, now I've got the scooter, but where do I take it? Right? Like, how do I get it there? And then all of a sudden I was able to go to, oftentimes I either struggled to be at the events, and then I was seeing where I couldn't even struggle. I literally just could not do it. And so using my manual chair was a really good way for me to gain access to these buildings and gain access to the events and say, like, hello, I'm here. But it was still starting off every conversation where it was, how can I help Josey? Josey clearly needs help. I mean, I don't have a mirror when I get out of the car, but people are like, shit, like dropping stuff to be like, oh, she's,
Hey, so we've been joined by Stacy Wachowski and by Adam Brook, and during this conversation and stuff like that. And I just want to take a second just to frame the perspective a little bit for some people. Josey, Katie mentioned, stay at hotels kind of casually, but there was just a recent event that really highlighted some of the issues that you face. You were at a hotel, you had your chair in your car, but you couldn't get the chair out.
I couldn't get the wheelchair out. So my car, I got the wheelchair. My car blew up, so I rented a car, and I couldn't get the manual chair out of the car, which is, I got in there late. I can't smoke weed in the rental, so I was smoking weed at my friend's house, however long that took for me to get there. I called the hotel. I couldn't get any answer in there, and there's only 2 handicap parking spots. And I mean, there's definitely more than 2 handicap rooms, but there's only 2 handicap parking spots. And so when I parked in the parking lot, I couldn't get the crutches into the building. And so I was like, well, I'll just wait until morning and then I'll call again. And so I called up there.
Meaning you just resigned yourself to the fact, I'm going to have to stay in this car, and I'll have a hotel room a few feet away.
Hours and hours.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the way I was raised, is to be, I am willing to be uncomfortable and compromise if I can get the job done. And the job for me was, I was going to interchange the next day. And I really put a lot of effort into being able to go to interchange, and I had like a plan. We were meeting with people. And so I just wanted to take a shower before I got in there. And I've been disabled. I haven't walked in 17 years, so I've never had a problem getting somebody to help me. The problem was the parking. So I called up there, and they were like, no, we can't. Oh, I don't know if I can help you. We're going to have to call our manager. And I was like, okay, well, it's just like luggage, right? Like just a manual chair. It's nothing fancy. I stole it from a hospital, allegedly. And so I had put on the internet something like, can somebody get my wheelchair out of my car? Because I haven't been able to get it out, so I've just been stuck here since last night. And Robin, Queen of the World, called me, and she was like, Josey, this is bullshit. She does this every 10 years or so. I get into something stupid, and she calls me and tells me, this is fucked up. And so she called them, and they told her that it would be a liability to get it out. And she was like, well, I think she's in the parking lot right now. And they were like, yeah, we see her. That's the best part of the story, is that I'm like outside making a fool of myself, crying and sobbing and having a meltdown. So everybody
just like watching.
Yeah. It would have been really good for like views if they had recorded it, but it was so I got in. I talked to Joe. Joe at Franklin Fields came and got me out of the car and got my wheelchair, and I got inside, and I was on the 4th floor, by the way, and I booked it. It's a handicap room. It's handicap accessible. So I got dressed. I got ready. I got to the event, and I was on the phone with my caregiver. He showed up to table for us, and I was like, are you there? I need help getting my wheelchair out of this car because I just can't get it out, right? And he was like, don't worry, Josey, everyone's here. They love you. I pulled into that bitch, and I just started sobbing, y'all. Like, I was just... I don't know everybody. This idea that I know everybody in the world is just not true. So I was just sobbing hysterically. And I look up and I make eye contact with these 2 strangers. This is not part of the story, but it's a good part. And I I shit you not, I was like, hello, I'm Josey. Have you heard about the Great Lakes Expungement Network?
Well, you're crying your eyes out. You're still pushing the Great Lakes Expungement Network.
Still trying to help other people while you were in need of help.
They were wearing khakis, which is like the international sign that they might want to donate to the program, you know? And so I made a new friend, and it was the next day, my daughter had broke her leg, and it was a realization that I'm experiencing this climb in my career, and I want to prove to my child that, you know, she can do whatever she wants to be. She can build something. People in wheelchairs can be in all spaces. But at the root of it, right, I could become the president of the United States, and I still can't pick up my fucking kid off the ground. And then I had to spend 2 hours at the hospital waiting for Dakota to get there because I couldn't leave the hospital because I could not put her in the fucking car. It took us 15 minutes to get in the car because I was renting a car and nobody could get in it. Nobody. I couldn't get in it. My mom couldn't get in it. Good luck getting fucking Cadence in there with a broken leg. And so it's been a theme in my life the last 2 weeks, which is I can't do everything I want to do. But there are things I want to do that I could do if I could get there. And I just want to be where everybody else is. And more so, I think that, you know, in the beginning, I know we talk a lot about recreational marijuana, but in the beginning when it was medical marijuana, the medical marijuana community is so much for me. There was representation. It's the first time I saw people that looked like me, that had their struggles as me in masses. John Targowski, I met him when I was 15 years old, and he was in a wheelchair. He is in a wheelchair. He's an attorney.
Yes. He got my friend California. I was in Michigan for a long time. Yeah.
I know you can fucking do that. I have no examples unless I'm looking in the goddamn mirror, or maybe at Drew Driver for sure now, of people working a job in a wheelchair. I mean, any job, secretary, let alone the boss of something, right? Something that means something that changes more than just today and tomorrow. And that comes from two things. One, it's expensive for disabled people to work. Remember that many people don't get insurance, and the ability to pay a copay every time I need somebody to, in the idea that if I was paraplegic, for example, every time I need some round the clock care, the ability to afford copays for something like that is impossible, right? So many people who are brilliant, who are disabled, are unable to even access fields like this. And so I got in lucky, and I saw somebody that could do it. And then there was an opening for me. I was visibly disabled. I could string a sentence together. I was cute as shit at the time, right? So it was easy to put me in front of spots and articulate what we were doing. It was before Gupta, but I could have easily been used as a prop. And I think that it was out of the pure, you know, I invited myself to shit. I showed up to shit, and it was very rarely that I was offered.
You weren't used as a prop. You did a really good job on the, I think Rick arranged for you to be there. On the Dr. Nandy show. You know,
that's exactly right.
Well, that was when I was 14, right? That was when I was 19 in 2014. But there was this climb, and I remember it very vividly. I was 14 years old. It was Hash Bash. Here is Renee Wolf taking steps towards the podium, and she's like, "Marijuana did this for me." And then the next year, we were at the Capitol. Everybody is smoking weed. I'm 100% sure we're not supposed to do this. Everybody is smoking hella weed. You assholes flew that plane that said "fuck you, Shooty," or whatever it said. Remember? It was amazing. I think it said, "Why does Shooty hate handicapped people?"
Why does Shooty hate patients?
Resonated with it, right? Because
we said
I wanted to be a part of this. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be part of the cannabis industry, a part of the community. It wasn't an industry at the time. I wanted to be a part of this group of people that loved cannabis and loved each other, and they were struggling with the same thing, and they just wanted to make it easier. And I saw that at Hash Bash. I've been chasing it ever since. And I went off on the same tangent when we talked about Hash Bash, and I was like, oh, I'll never forget where it came from, but I won't. I wanted to do this my whole life. And the system isn't built for me to be there, right? Remember, people with disabilities make less than $800 a month. Growing up, my mom made $731, but most she ever made when I was 18 was $731. You don't get extra money for having children. I know that that's like a thing, but if you're born disabled and you're not able to pay into the system, SSI is different. And so how are you going to afford an $80,000 wheelchair van? And generationally, how would my mother ever get out of that to show me that I could do it, right? That I could have a real job, that I didn't even know. I had no idea until I met Targowski. And so it's more about creating the blueprint for me to show Kay that she can work a job, she can get the van. This is something she'll grow up with. But it is a unique circumstance for me. And most people that look like me and that are me don't get a chance like that.
So we talked about your need for the van and how important it is, but there was a big GoFundMe, right? I mean, that certainly helped out, right? Look at the smile on your face.
So
Isn't that great?
the whole reason I work a job, like an actual tax-paying job, is so that I will be a good loan candidate, so I can buy the wheelchair van. I got the wheelchair, then I get the house. Is the idea that I can form it. My house right now only has 1 bedroom downstairs and 2 of them are upstairs, and then I get the van because the van's $80,000. But then that didn't work out because my car blew up. So I saved $10,000, which is a lot of money. I don't care who you are. There's a lot of money. So I was like, hey, I'm going to put $10,000 down on this. And I found a van that was $20,000 cheaper than literally everything else I looked at. And so even with that, it was like a $900 payment. My credit score is good, but it's a $40,000 fucking vehicle, even with the $10,000 down. And then I wouldn't have enough.
You have young credit.
I have young credit, yeah. So I was born in 94, so all my formative years are in 2008. So I just, and also I sold a lot of weed, so I do a lot of cash things, We all have that same issue. So now I'll be able to, I wouldn't be able to get both, like a mortgage and a car loan to do both. And I want to, I just want to be able, I just want to be in every room in the house. And I just, it's not a hover around commercial. I want to hold my kid's hand when we cross the fucking street. I want to go to the grocery store, pick out what I want, put it in my goddamn cart, take it home, and then take it inside, bro. I want to take all my clothes, like the laundry that I cannot fit in my washer, like the big blankets, and like use my wheelchair to wash them at the laundromat. I don't want to fucking visit the Grand Canyon. And then I want to show Kay that she can do it. And I want to do it for my mom. And, disabled people make people so uncomfortable that we account for 20% of the population. That's big buying power, especially in our dispensaries, right? And less than 1% of our lawmakers. There's been 2 revolutions for people that look like me, people like me. The first one in the 30s when it was too expensive to keep us in cages and they let us out. And then the second one in the 80s, which is, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And nothing has been updated since. And so these are people that we know, that we love, that are, and remember in history, there's plenty of disabled folks that make waves. And a lot of our great policy comes from FDR. I know that Cece's here. She'll talk a little bit, she can attest to that. We've got Stephen Hawking. We've got people that were able to afford to be at the table, right? They don't even pay us enough to look like we belong there. And so all of these policies, especially in drug policy reform, remember, we're consistently put at the forefront of this and then never get to reap the benefits of it. You want to legalize marijuana? We'll do it with disabled folks. You guys want to do mushrooms? Let's put disabled veterans up there, right? But I can guarantee that we never get to be in ownership. And for the same reasons that Black and brown people don't, and whether that be generational wealth, the inability to build that, right? And remember, when you're on SSI, you're not able to acquire assets. You cannot have more than $2,000 in your bank account. How am I going to buy a van that's $40,000 if I can't have more than $2,000 in my bank account? Oh, and the best part of it is, most of these vans, over 70% of vans that are purchased through crowdfunding. Not through insurance, not through what I thought, which was, hey, auto accidents or foundations. People are consistently, and the reason they're so expensive is because they have to rebuild the suspension and drop it and make it so that it's able to support the weight.
And it has to lower to the ground. They have to raise the body up, but lower the suspension so the vehicle can kneel for the ramps,
because they don't build them
and
for chairs, us in the first place.
And your chair,
my God,
your chair is 400 pounds. It has to, a suspension has to be able to be converted. That's the conversion. That's what a lot of people didn't realize, and we learned all this, right? I learned all this.
Yes, and I've learned it.
Yeah,
being disabled is embarrassing. It's shameful. I spend a lot of time trying to prove that I'm not, but the truth is that I am, and there should be nothing shameful about it, right? I should not be forced to exist.
Yes.
And so if I hit a barrier, then I'm okay. I'm okay not to be there. And I'm okay with missing out on things, but I feel like sometimes people are missing out on me. I feel like you guys are missing out. You're building events and I don't get to be at it. But it's not just me. It's people like Sharon and people that belong there, that deserve to be there, that were the spaces were originally created for, that are shoved out. And this happened also, I don't want you to ever think that when everything was for medical marijuana patients that they were accessible, because that they also sure were not. But it should be, right? And if there's anybody, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for half my life. I was 14 when I got involved in the industry. I'll be 29 this year.
It's 420.
I've been raised by this industry. I've been raised by the women here, the way the people that invested in me hard and early and knew that they invited me to meals that they knew I could not fucking pay for. They invested in me. They coached me. They put me in the right spot, and they did that consistently. And here we are. We fucking legalized marijuana.
So we kind of skipped over the crowdfunding, the GoFundMe thing, which was so important to the story, because you realized that you had a van picked out, you needed the money, and somebody put you on the internet and said, hey, we need to help Josey out, and then tell us what happened.
So we put it on GoFundMe. They talked me into it because I was like, you know what, dog? Everybody buys shit they can't afford, so I'm just gonna do it too. And it's like people like you. They'll help you get this wheelchair. Plus, that means we don't have to carry your fucking wheelchair every time we go anywhere.
I never said that.
and let's let Gail and Mike, Dr. Detroit, know that the van does exist, and we're gonna get to check it out here in a few minutes.
So I want to tell you guys that I got into literally, this is not a joke, 60 cars. Yeah. I got into cars. Wheelchair vans are not built for disabled people. Remember, we don't make enough money to buy them. We are not the ones they're marketed for. They're for rich people with disabled family members. Yeah. They're not for, hello, I want to fucking be here and I'm going to do it my goddamn self. So I actually could not get into any of the cars. There was one car in the whole lot out of 60 of them that I could get into, and they had fucking sold it. So I was like, no, it looks like I'm not getting a wheelchair van today. And we searched on there, and there was one from the same company but was in Tennessee. And I was like, send it here. And so we were just hoping that I could get into it.
So we put a deposit down.
10,000.
Yeah, because I put a deposit down saying bring it up here, it's worth it. And we put it contingent on whether or not all the chairs could fit. Josey could get in and out of it. It wasn't a guaranteed, right? It needed to work for her and her family. So that's when the whole long weekend of make sure everything's great. And it was like, okay.
Oh yeah, dude, I can do whatever. I went and got takeout. Listen, Martin's doesn't let you, they don't have fucking handicap parking, which is another thing. But they don't have cart. I can never get Martin's Deli. If you're from Southwest Michigan, you know the struggle.
It's like
I just went in and got it, bitch. I was just like, okay, we'll fucking go in there. Shut up. But it's whatever. I went into Applehoppers. My baby wanted ice cream. They don't do curbside. And curbside, I know COVID. We lost a lot of people with COVID, but also I've been begging people to bring a fucking pizza to my car for 17 years that I've been crippled. And it took able-bodied people asking for me to be like, oh, yeah, maybe we'll do curbside. Jesus Christ. So.
Can we get to the GoFundMe story, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It raised $10,000 in the first day. They launched it. It raised $10,000. Now it's up to 18.5, I think. Yeah, all of the money's going to this car. I picked out the car. I cannot change the car, guys. I cannot try on any more cars. This is the one. You know how you feel it. It has 44,000 miles on it. It is literally $20,000 cheaper than every other fucking car that is convertible. I can get all of my wheelchairs in it. I can get in all by myself. The front comes out, like the front passenger seat comes out, so I can pull up next to it and then just get in my driver's seat and drive off. And I'm also been kind of texting my friends that donated and just verifying that I can smoke weed in it, and they said yes. So sesh time.
A lot of different people donated. Do you have any idea how many individual donations you received so far?
Yeah, I've got the statistics right here. Right now, we're at $18,692. and out of our 30,000 goal, and then we're at 162 donations.
It's fantastic.
Wow.
That's a lot of people. It's a lot of love.
It's a tremendous amount of love.
And it's people, it's, you know, a lot of times we see the same people donating to things, right? Just the same people that always give back. And it's so good. I have so many like old schoolers, people I haven't talked to in so long. I haven't seen that I didn't even know were part of the algorithm anymore. And then a lot of people, I honestly, mobility, the ability to be where everybody else is, the ability to do things that other people are doing, the ability to build the program in a way that it deserves to be built is great. But the true gift is to be a part of a community that I've long wanted to belong to be loved. Like, people spend their whole life trying to feel the love that I feel, and people like me don't usually get that kind of validation. We don't usually get to be in spaces where I feel like these people fucking love me, and I feel like they want me to do well, and that they believe that I do well for the community.
Well, here's somebody who fucking loves you. That's Ryan Basor, who's just joined the
Oh, what a
broadcast.
good time for Ryan to come on.
Crying.
You know, teary-eyed, you've been telling your stories there, Ryan. It's been fantastic stuff. You're gonna have to watch the replay of this because, man, it's wonderful.
I will. It's as much as Josey can't believe it's happening. You know, it's a little bit the same too. It's been, you know, I want to thank definitely Greenstem, Katie and George and the whole team for pushing the ball over the finish line. And man, what a bunch of momentum. And obviously, I'm sure you've been talking about it, but Josey needs to be doing the work she's doing for years to come. So we got to make sure that happens.
And you know, Ryan gave me a space at the table, gave me a space to display to be like, hey, you know, I know you can do this, and trusted me with the vision. I'm so grateful for that. And a lot of the people that are donating, that have met us, that have been so supportive, know me through Redemption, through Josey at Redemption. And also, I think it's been 10 years since Ryan was it 10 years yesterday since you were incarcerated?
Since I went in, yeah. It was actually, yeah. Yep. So just it's crazy, a decade.
So now he's just gonna fucking start a family, get married, have a baby, start a company, start an organization, and then help me get a van. What? Who the fuck is Ryan Basor?
Netflix, where are you? We need this.
I know. That's what I'm pitching right now. There you go.
I know.
Again, people don't get that chance. People that experience long stints of incarceration, or let's be real, incarceration at all, or raids, or any kind of harassment from the police, do not go on to start businesses. And 10 years later, they are not leading foundations to do work that betters the life of other people. And they're sure as hell not able to invest in people, whether they be on their staff or not. And I would love to be like, Ryan is investing in, that's what he does best, right? He finds people, he invests in them, and finds what they do. And where they fit. So I'm so glad to be a part of the team and to do really good work. Again, I think I say this every time I'm on here, but we could have easily done a smoke and mirrors campaign where we showed up and told people how to expunge their records and left. But Ryan didn't want to do that. He didn't want to waste my time. He didn't want to waste his time. He didn't want to waste the people that came to us time. He didn't want to waste the money that people were donating. And so I'm really grateful. I'm grateful to be a part of this community and to be.
Do you want to show them?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough setup. We should go check it out.
Yeah.
Should we do it on the phone?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be back.
No, here I'm gonna bring us. I'm gonna bring us.
I left my wheelchair in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. No, not yet. But
God
we're
damn it. So we can't hang out in the van, y'all.
Just don't want to break it in there, or defile it that quickly, or get cannabis smoke in there.
Jamie's pit did no.
they should be on it, I think.
That shit's not going to last. I know that.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Look at it. Everybody who contributed. Remember, just because she's got the van right there doesn't mean that the need for those contributions has gone away. So continue to support the GoFundMe, continue to make donations. Let's make sure that we get this whole paid off and there's no future payments for Josey to handle. right on the crutch.
Slid in there.
Oh, just get in it. Shut up.
That's awesome.
Oh, you gotta open this side so we can see this.
Okay. But like literally I got into 100 cars and I couldn't actually. I just stood outside of like 70 cars. It fucking sucks. Okay, now we gotta go down the ramp. The ramp is the coolest part.
I know. It's gonna be fun. I'm
so
excited for everyone to
excited.
see.
You sounded so much like Brenda right then, Joes. I have to say. Just like your mom.
Damn.
Gets excited. She makes those sounds.
There's the ramp.
Rock and roll rapid.
Sure. Let's fucking get in it then.
So if you're coming in that way, you just come up the ramp.
And if it's both of the wheelchairs, and then watch. I just like. Because my electric one goes outside.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's
Yes!
Look at that shit. Yeah.
Just to see the joy.
Man.
Bye!
The joy. Oh, she's gonna shut us out.
I
Oh,
got
so
you
mean.
leaving.
That's the best video ever.
Hello, I've arrived. If you can imagine smoke pouring out.
So that was so smooth. I was around for the golf tournament that we should at least mention because it's the dumpster and all types of stuff. But I
And
went
then I
down
could
to
carry shit. Like, hello. I'm just imagine me carrying something right now.
I don't think she can hear your dialogue.
okay, yeah,
Mary,
yeah, she
because she's
And then
far
go
away
all
from
the
it.
way
But I was with Katie's husband down there at Josey's place, loading up her automated chair on his truck in a special little like contraption thing, getting the right angle for the ramp on the ground and all this. She was a big hassle. It
huge.
took a while. This was the way that she just demonstrated getting in and out of the van was comparatively like just.
Katie, did she leave the ramp out though? No.
no, it's put away.
Go listen. Oh,
Yeah,
It's
the other
really
side
seamless.
is the door is open, but
I can close the door.
okay, I forgot.
I can close the door.
That's the point. Yeah,
Look,
nice.
I love it.
Oh,
I literally,
Oh, that's cool.
fuck you, Hyatt. I'm just gonna go inside.
If you choose to like give them, your patronage
Can you
again.
believe this? And
Yeah.
so the conversion alone is like almost $30,000. But then I'll be able to use my real wheelchair, and I'll be able to go more places.
And you mentioned earlier there's enough room in there for Cadence and for Brenda too, right?
And both of our wheelchairs.
Yeah.
3 wheelchairs will fit in there. I'll fit my manual as well.
How is Cadence doing with that broken leg? You mentioned it earlier, but you didn't give us an update on her happiness level.
She's doing so much better. So we taught her how to use the wheelchair, so she thinks she's the shit right now. And Kay, I struggle. Same thing. I struggle with not wanting my kid to be treated differently and understanding that she is different. And she's going to a school next year where all of her classes are upstairs. And I'm like, well, how will she access these classes, right? There's no elevator. How will that work? What would you do if Cadence broke her leg in 2nd grade? And so she's been healing really well, but she heals differently, and she already walks different, and she's, spaces are already not created for everyone to exist in. And so I'm excited to have Kay. I think I'll get Kay home next week or so. She's been so fragile. I've been unable to like move her around and stuff, but she's doing really good. She's 7.
Oh.
Oh. You know that when they turn 7, they just automatically get sassy.
Wait till they get 8.
Oh
Yeah.
my God! Shut up.
It gets better every 14 years.
No YouTube. That's all I can tell you. No
Yeah.
YouTube.
Ryan has that to look forward to. So yes.
Hey, so let's just take a quick second. There was the fundraiser for Redemption Foundation right in that area, a couple minutes away from where they are right now. Took place last weekend, raised around $20,000 or so for Redemption Foundation that helps out so many other interns, so many other good causes, and helps to repair the damage caused by the war on cannabis. And that was really successful. Rick Ansis was on Medical Mondays last night talking about it a little bit too.
Yeah, Rick. We couldn't have done it without Rick. He's, you guys all know him. He's professional when it comes to especially that outing down there in Buchanan. Knows the private club. Everyone was on board. Josey and the team killed it. I got to ride around in a golf cart the whole time. Had a Bloody Mary. Smoked a lot of joints. There were dab bars at the holes. It was after the CRA came out, and said, "Hey, you're not selling weed. Knock yourselves out. Use as much as you want." And people did. And we had great sponsors from people. Of course, like Greenstem, Sunset Coast, Highway Horticulture was the main sponsor, and they really turned it up and supported us and was huge, along with Fuel, which is the Nature's Relief folks, and just a lot of other people. So it was a blast. It was perfect weather. Jamie was out there. Even I saw, golfing with Charmy. First time I saw Charmy golf, and it was fun. It was probably the least amount of booze for an outing that the cart girl ever sold, but it was a ton of fun. Everyone was eating a lot of edibles, doing a lot of dabs. Earl King had a sweet setup out there for the dabs, and we kept going back to it. So, I was riding around with Mark Passerini the whole time. He came up.
Sticky
from,
Mitten was there. They
Chicago.
got some, got some good stuff from there.
Oh yes, yeah.
I overheard that joints were being given away, and I was magnetically drawn.
Yeah. Greenstem always brings joints, and we always give away weed. And then Sticky Mitten was there with like the what are they called, Nuvo or?
Oh, the drinky things?
The cartridge drinkers, where it's like
yes.
Oh yeah, I did that too.
Yeah. That put me over the edge.
Oh my god, it's so cool.
I didn't even know.
This out.
I feel like
oh my gosh.
all this. I just usually smoke joints, so
yeah, it fills in
I
at the
got
bottom
carried
of the cup,
away.
and you reach in with a straw and just like.
No, I know it's the CO2. It's because
cool.
it hits like it's like liquid flower. It's liquid cannabis. It's so pure. It's not BHO. It doesn't taste like anything else other than weed. It's strain specific. It's just awesome.
Then Sweet Justice was there with Missy was handing out slushies the whole day as much as you wanted. So it was great. And the weather was perfect. First really beautiful day in a little while, and couldn't be happier and more thankful. And I think we got another golf outing coming up in August, but this one's up in Frankenmuth, if you can believe it or not. So excited for that one too. Other side of the state.
Area for August.
Yeah. Yep. And on another note, not to steal the thunder of anything, but we did start a new program. We call it. We launched it with the commissary cured resin, Nature's Relief, Fuel. Tony over there and Brian came and Joe came and approached us about wanting to help out and what they could do, and they had biomass, and then which we know is a hot commodity right now, and then MD processing in Jackson, Leone Township wanted to process package, and we ended up making 5-gram baller jars of cured resin, and priced at wholesale at $25. Sold it out immediately. Could have sold a lot more, and ended up being about $19,000 wholesale, and out of that, it's going to be like $17,000 of it's going to go directly to federal cannabis prisoners' commissary books. So like when I was in there, I know Mr. Hashbash there knows is better than anyone. When in federal prison, $300 was the max you could spend a month for commissary, and I made $10 a month at my job there. You don't make anything, and So like, you know, it means the difference between whether or not you can you can call people, get a hold of your family. You know, they really charge, you know, there was like 50 cents a minute when I was there for phone, internet, but it's things like, you know, getting shoes, getting a deck of cards, getting a chance to eat semi-decent food, you know, just a whole different world in there. You know, and there's about 120 federal cannabis prisoners left, just for weed. You know, when I was in there, I felt like, you know, even though I got great support from, you know, people on the show, you know, you feel kind of like it's passing you by. You're reading about it in paper. So I get the State Journal, and you know, I couldn't imagine being in there now, especially for a long time, and seeing what's going on out here. So you know, it's a big difference. We got a huge reaction. There's a bunch of other companies want to donate biomass and process it, and we're going to do a whole series of it. And you know, like the goal would be if we got, you know, $36,000 a month coming in that we could commit to it, that would max out every federal cannabis prisoner's book commissary every month. You know, and it'd be a way to show them that they're not forgotten, and you know, make their stay a little bit easier too. So excited about that one. We kind of Josey gave me the idea.
I love this thing because Ryan said I stole this idea from you, but I stole it from him. It's the whole thing about redemption, right? 10% of the stuff goes back. Ryan, what kind of stuff did you buy on commissary, and what kind of stuff did you want to buy but couldn't afford?
Well, you know, you want shoes. You want
How much is a pair of shoes?
Meat. I mean, 80 to 150. Boots. You get special boots. You know, steel toed. You know, every once in a while be some special edition coming through. That'd be, you know, you'd see them on the compound from 6 years ago. They only hit once and things like that. But or you know, you can, you know, a lot of it's also, you know, we had cans of mackerel or what was our money. So you know, buys your money to do stuff. You know, maybe to go to the barber and have someone do someone doing my laundry. Things like that, but you know, you get internet time, well, not internet time, but email ability, phone, but just like meat and, you know, ramen and medical supplies and you know, allergy medicine.
Allergy medicine, that's an elective, right? You don't just, if you have allergies, you just suffer unless you can pay for it.
Yeah. And this allergy medicine, if you took enough of it, it gave you, it was like, give you a buzz, and that's what people did. So
I think most people in America think that the penal system provides proper footwear for folks and provides the basic medicines that they need when it comes to sinus and allergies and things like that. But the reality is far from that.
No, not at all.
Even in the medical-based prisons, people still struggle to get proper medical care.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. That's what stay out. You know, I try to stay out of the med line if you can, and if you can't, then stay out of their medical where I was at, because you know they were the reason where they were at Morgantown was because they didn't make it, you know, at the regular hospital, you know, or administrative. They went
I tell people all the time that I tell doctors and nurses that I meet and see in my healthcare that, you know, once you get enough dings on your license, don't worry. You can still go work for the state or the federal government in the prison system. Because every doctor or nurse I saw, when I had their name ran, you could see exactly how many dings they had on their license. And these are not the people you want treating you.
No. In fact, I feel like I would have probably been dead if I had my left top rib removed 4 years ago, and if it would have happened, you know, 3 or 4 years earlier when it happened, I would have been dead. So like sometimes it's that big of a difference. A lot of people passed away when I was there. It was sad trying to get treatment.
And you know, one of the biggest things about COVID was that hand sanitizers have been banned from most prisons and jails because of the alcohol content. And here in Michigan, it was specifically banned for hand sanitizers, not alcohol-based hand sanitizers, just hand sanitizers. So people were dying at an accelerated rate, and it took a literal legislative change in order to get life-saving equipment like hand sanitizers and masks into people's hands, and then they still had to pay for it in commissary, y'all. I can't. People are literally dying, and this wasn't unique to Michigan. It happened absolutely in all of our federal prisons, and today they're still paying, like, I hear my echo, I'm sorry. They're paying for hand sanitizers, feminine products, things that we take for granted, things that we think are A, like you guys are saying, included, and then B, human decency, just basic, needs.
This is part of the problem that we've talked about. Privatization of prisons means maximization of profit, not necessarily the improved quality of care that's given to those incarcerated individuals that you're hoping to rehabilitate and release. The fact is, we don't have funding for things. We don't pay for our prisons the way that we should, and oftentimes money that's given goes to a direction that might not be beneficial to the prisoners. Might be beneficial to the prison infrastructure or for leadership or to increase guard salary, but that doesn't directly relate to an improvement on the condition of the day-to-day prisoners.
Right.
Go ahead.
When you went to prison, they had not legalized marijuana in Colorado, had they?
And where? In Colorado?
In Colorado. That happened in November after you went to prison. Is that true?
Yeah, it happened in 2014. Yep.
How did it feel to be in prison while they were legalizing recreational marijuana?
I mean, I was hopeful. I went in there thinking, I got to use this or it's all for naught. I got to come out and make this and really have happen. What happened was always in my mind, like kind of how I got through it was like, all right, this is a super intense situation. I can sit here and cry about it, or I can use all this, energy to try to make something happen that maybe I couldn't have happened otherwise with me. So that's how I looked at it. But the thing that got me pissed off was when I'm reading the State Journal and that guy, what's his name from Grand Rapids, the Herman, that lawyer, Matt Herman at the time, was on there. It was before Robacher Farr in 14, and he's in there talking about in Grand Rapids doing these renting out all this stuff, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? That was
segmented
what
caregiver grows. Yeah.
He stole money from a lot of people in the industry that are prominent today, and he got disbarred for it.
Yeah, but one thing I was gonna say about the food, we talked about the healthcare, but the food that you get served, most of the packaging says not for human consumption. It's a backward setup where the food administrator, if how much he or she stays under budget, they get a bonus. So they're buying food from distributors that have old 3-4 year old stuff. You're gonna get them super cheap and feed you. So weird. So they're motivated to try to get as cheap and it turns out nasty food. And then one of the guys that I was there has a restaurant in town, got caught stealing food from the Bureau of Prisons and doing it and didn't even get fired. That's like a huge federal charge. There was guys in there doing but he was stealing food from the kitchen and serving it at his restaurant in town.
Crazy story.
I'm going to gloss by a little bit. I know that we just saw Josey's van, but France Bunch, good friend for a long time, was saying that he has a wheelchair accessible van.
I might be interested in buying it, to be honest with you.
So, and looks like Adam is in need, and there could be a conversation there.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's kept me from getting a wheelchair. Is that you have to get a vehicle to transport it in. Yeah. And I go to some of these events and venues that if I had a chair, it'd be much easier than walking around. Just
He did.
Hey man, maybe there's a connection there. That would be really cool.
Making connections here at JCC.
right.
Isn't there more things than just events that you think the chair would help you with?
Oh yeah, you know that. I mean, you and I have talked about that.
I do.
And the reality is that the doctors aren't going to do it, and the insurance companies aren't going to do it.
Yeah, I wasn't crippled enough for the van for the wheelchair the first time I tried, and I was like, I'm the most handicapped person any of my friends know. I swear to fuck. Like,
right.
Jesus.
Joe, you mentioned earlier that most of the wheelchair accessible vans that are customized are done through crowdfunding, GoFundMe things.
Over 70%.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I actually live a half a mile from one of the largest companies in Michigan that remakes and rehabs those vans, and I see them in the neighborhood all the time. And these things are people are spending $30,000-$40,000 on a van they just bought in order to get what they need in it. And just fascinating how expensive it is, and and they're good at it. Don't get me wrong. I've seen some pretty interesting things built, but it's not cheap.
Joe's, you're on mute.
It doesn't have to be that way. It is that way because they don't build them for handicapped people from the start. And that comes from not believing that A, handicapped people have purchasing power, or B, that, but that can't be true either. This is where I get held up because there's whole companies that are just for selling handicap accessible vans.
Yep.
It's just Apple. I mean, that's just how it is. But it shouldn't be that way. And also think about this. How many, when you order an Uber, where's the option for handicap accessibility?
That and that's interesting. When I went to Manhattan and I used a power wheelchair while I was there, they have a special taxi number that you can call that will get you a wheelchair accessible taxi cab. And yeah, it might take 20 minutes, but I'm from Detroit. You're lucky if the cab shows up in 20 minutes if you call. It's, yeah.
Oh man, got himself.
Wait, we're trying to go to New York, Adam. Wait for
I'm curious to know how much more expensive that is in the regular Uber because I love the service, but sometimes handicapped people, as Josey mentioned earlier, are not financially able to afford some of these elevated prices. And in a city like New York, I would imagine it to be very elevated.
And they might even have it available too, which is, additionally.
And it continues,
get out of
right?
money.
So, like, it's more expensive to maintain these things. It's more expensive to maintain the wheelchair. It's more expensive to maintain. Like, I don't understand in the idea that insurance pays for it. For people like my mom, who were born disabled, unable to work into the system, had a child also disabled, there is no assistance for that. This idea that people have that I think comes from hope, like just pure and utter like ignorance is bliss. Like I hope that this is what gets done. But for people with disabilities and for parents that have children with disabilities, it's hard. They're not getting a financial assistance. So many of them are just unable to participate at all.
Adam, I was wondering, was the handicapped van taxi ride more expensive than a traditional taxi would?
No, cost exactly the same.
Beautiful.
Available by phone, and it worked out well. I mean, everywhere I needed to go, it took me. The problem is that until you make a change to your space, you don't necessarily have to comply with the ADA. And there's a lot of places that haven't changed yet. So now I see every community, people are bitching and moaning about bike lanes, but guess what they do when they do the bike lanes? They redo all the corners and they put out cutouts, and they're being done right. So I'm a big fan of that.
And remember, a lot of the architecture that's built, at least where I am and where a lot of us are, was built before ADA, right? Before any of that was a thing. And
I don't expect somebody to put a lift in on an old building just because they want to stay open. If they're going to make change, then they got to make it accessible. But I would think most people would want their place accessible. It's not that hard to get ramps built nowadays. even I would
There's
tell you,
grants for it. If you own a
Right.
business right now that is not handicap accessible, the government will help you pay to make it handicap accessible.
well,
And you're liable for damages if a person who is differently abled is injured somehow or inconvenienced or damaged through your non-compliant building style. So, I mean, there's a lot of liabilities for not upgrading.
Yeah.
oh, there definitely are. But it's nice to see now that
This is so
first thing that goes up in a new construction is the elevator shaft. I think that's cool. So
But
I got
also
to have downtown Royal elevator shafts built.
remember, the laws haven't changed around accessibility. The laws are the same since they were when ADA came in compliance. What's changed is the people telling their stories and the platforms and the ability to meet people that look like me in their own zone, and for them to create their own platforms and tell their own stories like I'm doing here, and for you to be able to connect with them. Also, the ability for people, because oftentimes we're always thinking me, but for people with disabled children to connect and those families to grow up in these Facebook groups, these online communities, these to be seen and validated in these platforms. That is where we get the pressure to include people at the table, or include people at the store, include people where we're at, right? It comes from people being able to make their own platforms. It comes from things like social media, I think.
Right. Sure. I mean, social media is huge. You're allowed to, now you can network with people that are in locations you would never personally, physically visit, but now you have an opportunity to network together. And then also, numbers make a difference. When a number of people reach out to a particular lawmaker in order to encourage something, they're more likely to do it. And when you can group together like that to effectuate change, that's a beautiful thing.
And people benefit from I benefit from being a part of a community that reflects who I am and what has the same struggles as me, right? I talk about this a lot when I joined the medical marijuana community, when I saw people that were experiencing this phenomenon, because in 2009 it was so crazy that we would like our friends were literally eating RSO and their cancer was going away. It was insane and nobody was talking about it. It was like, why is this a thing? It was, I know it's more mainstream now, but at the time it was so unbelievable. Yeah. And I remember my mom watching, just before we had legalized marijuana, a couple of years prior, watching these documentaries about how they did it in California, and all of it was brickweed in the documentaries. And so when it came here, and people like me were able to access it or grow it themselves. Remember, we were one of the first places that really allowed caregivers in the way that we do, or as generously as we do. And we didn't do it first. So we got away with things like unlimited paraphernalia and a lot of gray area. And there were a lot of people that fell victim to that very quickly in terms of the gray area.
In 2009, we launched the Michigan Medical Marijuana Magazine, Rick Ferris, myself, Big Daddies, and we told the truth about those exact things that you're talking about right now in a magazine format that was distributed pretty widely at the time. Featuring stories of Rick Simpson Oil knocking cancer out. I remember doing a photo shoot with McShane where we documented the changes in his skin cancer and the things that were erupting through his flesh. And it's dramatic imagery.
I love him.
I wish he was still around.
You should see my dad's arms. He puts cannabis cream on them, and he's in remission on his skin cancer because of it. He has this thing.
McShane was putting the oil, the full oil, directly onto those areas.
We should probably talk to my dad about maybe something, because he still has purple spots, and sometimes they'll blister open. They're on his arms and his legs, and it's all skin cancer related.
When they raided him in Oakland County, was it supposed to be him, or did they raid the wrong house?
So Detroit sent a raid team up to get somebody, and I believe they intended to get Mike, and it wouldn't surprise me because,
one of the cops in that by the way, that weird band of cops that were doing that ended up getting
this goes back to my.
But one of them lived in the neighborhood and knew what was had an idea of what Mike was doing and wanted to cause some problems for him.
but they were dirty cops that were leaving the
Yeah.
city and going and just being thugs.
They were just trying to make money. Yeah, they're just taking
Yep.
shit,
Exactly.
So
ripping people off.
They thought they were going to get a big score. There were a lot of raids at that time. This is about the time, Ryan was raided also. Big Daddy's was raided in January 2011. And,
Right
some
near
of-
there too. One of them.
Yeah,
they
Groves.
came after me in October in June 2011.
So that was a very active time for law enforcement against a lot of the people on this particular call. And it's very frustrating because you look back at it now, and the Medical Marijuana Act, our interpretation of that all the way through to the compassionate apothecary case was that a caregiver could transfer cannabis to a patient without being connected through the registry database. Because in one passage in the law passed in 2008, it did actually say that. So the Supreme Court of the state of Michigan eventually, in the compassionate apothecary case, decided that it did mean you still had to be connected. But we were under the impression that we were legally doing what we were supposed to be legally doing, providing cannabis to medical patients who didn't have any other way to get it.
Yeah.
And that's the real bullshit about this whole thing.
Patient to patient transfer. If you're allowed to, acquire, transfer, provide, if you're a patient and if you're both patients, it worked. It worked. But yeah, that was the Bill
language
Schuette
of the
era.
act you could interpret easily to be that patients could exchange with each other, which of course would be a broad and liberal interpretation, making it more functional, which is what the interpretation is supposed to be. But as Ryan's pointing out, that got evaluated in the courts and not necessarily upheld. So
January 2011 was a big month because Bill Schuette campaigned on surrendering some data to the federal authorities in regards to medical marijuana activity here in the state of Michigan. And it had been resisted by the current Attorney General, Mike Cox. As soon as Schuette got elected and was sworn in early January, he immediately disclosed that he was making that transfer of information. The Michigan Association of Compassion Centers immediately sued to stop that transfer of information. It seems like maybe they had already transferred it before we got the lawsuit in. However, just 2 days after that, they raided Big Daddy's. And the cops that raided us, when they came in, they weren't sure who the staff was and who the patients were. They weren't really sure what they were doing. It was as if they were just ordered to do this and they hadn't done any research on us at all. Yeah. So that tells me that it came from Lansing and it wasn't the result of a long investigation of the Big Daddy's organization. And that was national news. That was on USA Today, CNN. It was a big one.
And that's when they got my family's and all our information on that. And I remember when we had the big rally and the giant rally at the Capitol, and what Big Daddy's that bus got boarded by DEA on the way home. From that even too.
In Macomb, I think, right? Macomb.
Yeah.
County.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are in positions of profit right now in the industry that don't have any idea about what we went through, about what we did, about how treacherous it was, and how remarkable it is that any of us are still in the game that tried so hard to beat the fuck out of us, But it also goes to show human resilience. When you want something bad enough, when you want something and it's deeply ingrained in you, it's part of who you are, it's your identity, you don't let anything stop you. You don't let anything stop. This whole screen, including Stacy, this whole screen is full of people that have pursued their dreams, and because of it, they are where they are right now. And it's in a positive place, making change, making the world a better place. So.
But the sad part about it is they still they are trying to figure out a way to keep coming. They would love the opportunity to ramp back up in some way, shape, or form.
Can't quite hear you.
No,
a little rough. But I'm glad you brought up Stacy, though. Stacy, you've been patiently listening to this conversation. I know we're going to talk to you a little bit about DC and then maybe some labor stuff and that type of thing. But I know you've been paying attention because you have interest in this. So
Yes. And thank you so much for awakening the beast over here. Hi, everybody. Hi, Josey. Congratulations on the van. It's just so freaking exciting. Like,
Girl.
you like mobile in the way that you need to be. This is like a force that's unstoppable. So
I'm so excited. Thank
Yay.
you.
I didn't want to miss the opportunity to talk about real quick the intersectionality between the labor movement and the disability rights movement that has happened over the last several decades. So there's a woman named Kim Kelly. She wrote a book called Fight Like Hell, the untold story of the American labor story. And she has a chapter called The Disabled Workers. And in there, she talks about a lot of different things about this intersectionality. But one particular story that I thought was kind of very telling as to the tenacity of somebody like yourself, Josey, is that back in 1977 there was the Rehabilitation Act, and a bunch of disabled labor activists ended up occupying a bunch of federal buildings around the country, but they weren't able to do so normally, right? Like, because you couldn't just take a cab or a subway. So the Black Panthers ended up feeding all of those activists. And because of that, the Machinists Union, the IAM, ended up showing up, and they showed up with a bunch of like flatbed trucks and shit and a bunch of rope and help get people in wheelchairs to these federal buildings in order to protest and actually get shit done. So these two movements really have a lot to do with one another. I'm just curious, like, what you know about that time frame, Josey, as far as like what was going on in 1977 up until the ADA.
Joe's, you're on mute, baby.
So there's this book. It talks about what's called the crippled crawl, which is not my term. It's what they call it. And they crawl up here on the steps. And this is, first of all, this is exactly how they legalized marijuana too. It was around the same time period they were doing medical marijuana. It was this huge just disability rights, disability justice movement. And the idea was they were climbing up the stairs, children, adults, I'm not sure. Like, do you guys remember when we did the I don't know what we were suing. We were suing the state for something. We went to Flint and they have all those stairs there, and I couldn't get into the building because there was so.
That was over the petition signatures.
Do you remember?
Oh, well,
2016 election. But yeah.
I don't know how that happened because this whole ADA was created over this exact thing. They climbed up the Capitol. I don't know if it was the Capitol, but they climbed up the steps in protest.
It was. And you can actually see footage from that in documentary on Netflix called Cripple Camp. And it covers a lot of, that entire movement, but the footage from that particular action it will be burned into your mind. It was very difficult to watch, but also incredibly powerful.
It's called
Cripple Camp.
Crippled Camp.
Yeah, Obama produced it.
It's a documentary.
Called the Crippled Crawl.
And it's on Netflix right now because I just watched it.
And there's a book.
Yeah, it's CP, and she just died like a couple months ago.
Oh, Brenda.
Is somebody talking in the background? I'm sorry.
But people with disabilities are at the forefront of.
Now I want to hear what was said. Now I need to know what made you laugh like that.
Secrets don't make friends.
I can't wait to take Brenda in the wheelchair van, get her out in the wheelchair, and just zoom. What's she gonna do?
We should get her a date.
Yeah, she's looking.
Next GoFundMe. Yeah.
Okay, so we've been smoking weed. It's a lot of it too.
Imagine that.
That's Cabbage is all about.
Unusual.
A little bit more than usual. Well, actually, I haven't been able to smoke weed in the car, so I've just been smoking less weed. So it's like my first tolerance break, I guess.
There you go.
The longer periods in between being able to smoke is your tolerance break.
Yeah.
Stacey, was there anything else you wanted to update us on? Because I know we were sort of in the middle of your segment there.
Yeah, no worries. So I was very, very lucky to be approached by Brandy Zink, who is our chapter head here of Americans for Safe Access here in Michigan.
Hey, let me
And-
interject since you're going to start talking about that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you went down to DC with Brandy and Cass, and I'd like to have like those guys too in the future come on and expand on this conversation a little bit, too. But yeah, please continue. We were gonna get to that. Now's a good time, and continue on. I just want to throw that in there that we'll probably have a subsequent discussion too down the road about some of that.
Heck yeah, because we all had, our own individual experiences and stuff. And I really want to hear about, what Cass and Brandy ended up experiencing at the NCIA, which was just butting up against the end of the ASA conference. So yeah.
National
Brandy,
Cannabis Industry Association.
Yes. Thank you, Jamie. Brandy Zink had hit me up a couple weeks ago. She was like, hey, are you going to be going to DC? And I was like, for what? And she was like, hey, all those emails I've been sending out about the ASA Advocacy Academy. I was like, yeah, I read them. I just didn't really think I'd have time. But long story long, she was like, listen, there's an ASA house that, some of the heads of ASA were invited to stay at an Airbnb during the academy, which was in DC. So this was a 2-day thing. Well, 3 days technically, depending on when you come in or came in. But it was Sunday through Tuesday, with Tuesday being the day where you go to Capitol Hill and you lobby for all of the wonderful things that we've talked about, the previous 48 hours and the things that, we're all kind of interested in talking about here today. So Brandy's like, listen, she goes, I really think that it's important for you to have this experience. So, I'd like you to have my spot in this house so you can really get to know, who ASA is and the people that have really been behind National ASA and everything that comes along with it. So obviously it was like, shit, really need to make this happen. So made it happen. Eric Jacovetti from the United Green was kind enough to drive me out to DC on Sunday. And, I ended up staying at the ASA house, and it was an incredible experience. I know that, I believe Jamie has done it before. I feel like probably most of the people maybe on this call have at least been a part of it. Jamie, maybe?
I have not been there with ASA before. No, I've wanted to every year. Have never been able to do it, including this year.
Jamie and I did attend a normal international business conference in DC, but I've not lobbied in DC. I don't want to take the credit that I don't deserve. I haven't done that.
Oh, you guys, it was.
You're one up on us.
This is wow. Okay. Well, there's a lot of weight here now. No, it was an incredible experience, completely invaluable. Being on Capitol Hill was very surreal. One of the ASA members from Maryland ended up running into Bernie Sanders in the hall, which was super cool. We were all kind of fangirling about that. But the Advocacy Academy, I didn't realize how much I didn't know until Steph Shearer was like, here is all the things. Everything about the history of how we got to where we are with federal legalization and, the ability for states or for people to be able to participate in state legal medical systems and not be prosecuted, pursued. I learned a lot of shit about the history that I really didn't know prior, specifically because I kind of got into advocacy not that long ago. And I don't know if you guys have seen that meme of the two guys running super fucking fast and they're trying to play Jenga, and then they're trying to watch TV, and they're trying to eat dinner, and everything's just going everywhere. That's kind of how I've felt since jumping into this world. So the ability to backtrack about how we got here it was kind of lost. So for me, this was incredibly important to learn about what, you guys have been a big part of that I really, hadn't. But, we talked about Schedule 6, which is something that ASA has been, I guess, kind of came up with. which would create a new schedule, because right now, we have Schedule 1 through 5, and cannabis is uno, up there with like heroin. And Schedule 6 would alleviate a lot of the problems that we currently see with placing medical cannabis anywhere, right? So with a Schedule 6, this would be specifically about medical cannabis. It would have nothing to do with recreational. You can still do whatever you want with recreational, but this would allow a path for government workers and employees to be able to become patients and consume. This would allow a path for insurance to be able to cover medical cannabis. Create a real path for a truly bona fide interactive relationship with a medical professional. There was a lot that we talked about when it came to Schedule 6. I'm not familiar with the language or if it's really written in that form just yet, but it was something that we really talked about with, the meetings that we had with our lawmakers, and, the way it was received was pretty positive. Brandy and I met with Gary Peters, who is our senator here in Michigan, and his staff said that he was all for descheduling completely, which was obviously something that, the first thing we were talking about before Schedule 6, hey, let's talk about descheduling. Obviously, that seems like something that's a little bit more in the distance. So something that is more realistic.
That's why I think that this discussion of keeping it on the schedule, but just effectively removing, a lot of the issues that we have. But that could be, it's just kind of a little frustrating because it can be done without having cannabis remaining on the controlled substances list. Just shouldn't, where it doesn't belong. And again, and as you said, you hadn't read it, the devil's in the details. I trust that if ASA kind of is looking at it, I'm not guessing that they have to love it, but they probably see a practicality. And
I got to challenge the whole concept of scheduling medical cannabis one way and adult use cannabis a different way. Cannabis is cannabis. It's a plant. It's currently scheduled the same way for both. I can't see a value in trying to split that. If you're saying we only want to advance medical and we're going to leave adult use behind, that's not a definition that most Americans would support. Most Americans support a deschedule, and there's currently only 5 schedules or 5 categories on the list of schedules. So this would be creating a brand new schedule with rules that only apply to cannabis, as opposed to just exempting it from the schedule of
along
control.
with tobacco and alcohol.
Yep, tobacco and alcohol are both off the
So
list.
that's the ideal, but there's probably a lot of resistance and a lot of weird things going on and being assessed in DC, and somebody thinks this is a pathway to get some incremental move. Conceptually, though, I don't like the idea of it either. I don't like keeping it on the list. Rip it off, rip the Band-Aid off. But there is, but there is.
Scheduled 1 and 6 would really create a lot of confusion. I'm sorry, Stacey.
I think 6 would give at least maybe opportunity to other spots, to other things like mushrooms or even like.
Again, it could be a practical, way of moving something forward, but it's not ideal.
Right. But realistically, are we going to see descheduling anytime soon? Descheduling isn't just like, hey, we're going to stop arresting people. This is like, hey, we're admitting we did something massively wrong. And there's a lot of people profiting off of the fact that it wouldn't be descheduled. So I think that, Schedule 6 maybe not being a perfect thing, and it's,
it depends on what the words are. It depends on what it attaches to, depends on what it means. And we'd have to really look at that, and and it might be a way of doing it. I was going to respond to something you were saying before, and I kind of lost it. What were you just saying? To see if we can fire that neuron off again.
Schedule 6, Gary Peters, descheduling.
I don't know. Peters rings a bell, but
I love that Peters is a fan of descheduling completely.
Yeah,
There's a lot
right.
Yep. So I forgot what I was going to say. Something very pertinent and important. Probably.
It'll come back.
Probably answer to world peace or something like that.
Naturally.
Not having your wisdom.
What was everybody else's response, like lawmaker wise, to the the 6th.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I was gonna say, and it's related a little bit. I'll get back to that. There was the directive for the first time in history of the president to have, from an executive perspective, have the issue analyzed by the Department of Justice to make a recommendation. They then brought in the Health and Human Services, or whatever the federal Department of Health is. And I don't know, a couple months ago, I think I brought it up here. I saw they were still saying, yeah, we're waiting to see what's going on. And the health department says we're going to give them our recommendation, but it's still Department of Justice decision and all this kind of stuff. And in that we might have a hearing on this in as part of the recommendation, take in public input. And so that kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit, but it lets me know that they're not finding much wrong with cannabis, much information with which to justify keeping it on the controlled substances list. So, I mean, that's not going to be a move forward, but that's a way it could happen sooner than later.
Cannabis really doesn't meet the requirements of any of the current 5 schedules. It really
but asking people's input doesn't mean shit. This is like a scientific analysis, and then, hey, no, it doesn't meet these qualifications. We'll take it off. But of
Are
course,
cigarettes not on the list?
No,
tobacco and
tobacco
alcohol are
are
specifically excluded. In our Michigan language, they go out of their way to say that these things are not part of this list, and that's why in the descheduling that we'd like to see in Michigan would include adding marijuana, and I'd like to see other substances too. You mentioned, mushrooms and so forth added to that as well.
So federally, is it an exemption for? Okay.
Yep, for tobacco and for alcohol. So they've never had.
They have a regulated
of controlled substances issues like we do.
Trade
why
laws.
they don't have a problem with banking or anything else, because they don't get ranked.
Just the unicorn in all this,
Yeah.
just the unicorn. But to go back to your question, Josey, as far as the reception from lawmakers, everybody kind of had a slightly different but mostly similar experience, is that it sparked a lot of intrigue and additional conversations. So we ended up, Brandy, myself, and one other woman that is also an ASA member in New Jersey, ended up just deciding to go over to one of the other buildings and drop in on our friend and pal Rashida Tlaib. And we went over there and we immediately got a meeting with one of her staffers named Alexander. And we talked with him for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. And Brandy was absolutely wonderful. Like, her 20-something years of experience was really amazing to watch.
Brandy is really good in those situations, by the way.
Oh my God, yes. Like,
totally
just
concur.
knowing all the history of things, being able to connect everything, like, it was an awesome experience. An awesome learning experience too. But it was great because we walked in there and, we were able to not only talk about Schedule 6, but talk about, our own individual, situations, why we were there, and what our goals are as ASA, but also as patients, and what is the industry, the volatile nature of the industry right now, the fact that medical and patients are getting just lost, just by, like, recreational comes around and just everybody dips out, and what we're not, and I always have to bring it up, what we're not looking at is, like, if we're going to talk about medical access and safe medical access, we have to talk about the quality, and the quality in licensed facilities has not been proven to be the quality that it proposed itself to be. There's a lot of issues with the quality of product coming out of the licensed side of things. If we're to combine recreational and medical, what is that going to do? I think that's going to, further worsen, the access for patients. And also, like, looking at the farm bill too, there's a lot of shit going on with hemp. I'm currently splitting my time in a state where only CBD is legal, and there's a lot of, like, CBD stores and Delta fucking whatever flower and stuff that's sprayed and
OHC.
Yeah, whatever, exactly, QHC, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's kind of
These are all variations on the theme that you can synthetically take a CBD molecule and turn it into like an acid wash or something like that.
It's wild too, because it's like some of the, the workers in these facilities are really educated on what is here in front of them, but it's very eye-opening kind of being in a state where it's like, it's not quite the beginning, but it's way further prior to then when I got involved here in Michigan. And to see the level of education and interest in, hemp and cannabis employees, especially in the retail level, when it comes to how it's used medicinally is, intriguing as well. They're really fucking scared and about what's going to go on with the Farm Bill. It might put some serious dampening on patient access. And regardless of what we know about, the Delta-8 isomer, in a state like where I'm at, Delta-8 gummies really help people. And if it's the only thing that you have, it's like, where do you draw the line when it comes to access, right? Like, as a patient, I don't know.
But Delta-8, access to Delta-8 is somebody taking cannabis. Gosh, do you believe that it's not even weed for one? It's really not cannabis, right? Somebody who is richer than me and you, and somebody who is not the guy on the street corner who's just been selling weed, right? Somebody saw this and then exploited it, right? They have no idea what's going to happen. That is not, and then who gets blamed for it is the people that are trying to do legal weed stuff, right? Like if you go to Minnesota right now, you can buy Delta-8 anywhere. Delta-8 drinks.
LA, Minnesota just went
It's
legal.
like a dispensary, but it's Delta-8, and the problem is that people have not been educated on what cannabis is and what THC means, what any of this is, and so they don't know that Delta-8 is just something that some rich guy fucking made up, and that they don't have any idea what it is. And when somebody gets hurt from that, we're going to get blamed, and by we I mean the cannabis industry. I believe that there is. I think that we've always wanted cannabis to be medical and recreational at the same time, right? Like just the difference in tax in terms of access. Nobody's ever died from shitty weed, as much as I hate to say it. But
consumers should get what they expect, no matter
people
what.
should get what they expect, absolutely. And do you think they might get more of what they expect if the people selling it to them had to buy one license, right? But
I think it'd be better for pricing and stuff like
right,
that. If
absolutely.
And we can probably handle the health concerns, but I appreciate the perspective and the concern about making sure that the standards are consistent, and if we're going to do this, that those things are thought of and considered. There's been a loss of thought for these, as Stacey's brought up in previous shows, for those types of conditions and how the labor is affected and things like that. So.
Right. And, when it comes to making these products that are down here, and I Josey, and like, this is not to like, I completely agree with you. I really do. It's like, but when I talk to people down here, and this is one of the only things that they have, it's like,
absolutely,
it's just a fucking rock and a hard place.
Where is the CBD state? Which one? What is it?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So there are some, very big brands, learning more about the advocacy and the lobbying groups in a state that has been like farming and tobacco and all this shit for a super long time, is really eye-opening and interesting. But it's one of those things where you kind of look at it and you say, okay, like there's like a Senate bill that's, and forgive me, I'm not going to be perfect on this one, but there's a Senate bill, a proposed medical cannabis Senate bill sitting here in North Carolina right now. And it's like the most restrictive of any state like that anybody's ever seen, to the point where it's like, they only will allow, or they're only looking for everything to be dosed in pill form. Like no other way of consuming, everything has to be in pill form, no matter what it is, because it's a bunch of like white hairs who are like, well, I take 16 pills a day from a pharmaceutical, and everything needs to be in pill form.
There's a big anti-smoking lobby that wants cannabis to be allowed, but in some states it's medibles only, or there's no combustion of cannabis. You have to vaporize only.
A lot of people are just FDA kind of minded. Don't think in terms
Crazy.
of
The
yeah.
FDA, or
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the vape aspect of things down here was also, I did some sleuthing. There is a particular nonprofit that is advertising itself at the registers at this CBD chain down here. And after doing some research into them, one of their backers was made a lot of money off of playing poker and started rather a e-cigarette company. And the lobbying, they're putting the front, and maybe not, it's not a front, but they're lobbying on behalf of having safe hemp, but also on the fact that keep vape alive. And there's a lot of ulterior motives. But to go back to the ASA Advocacy Academy, God, I cannot get that off my tongue for the life of me, you guys. It was, again, an incredible experience. The first day was really long. It was at this place called the Festival Center in Washington, D.C. It was pretty much a brand new building. I think it was a converted church. And, we just got a crash course in the history of what ASA has done federally. And also there was a lot of really sweet exercises that we did too. Like what your dream headline would be, right? Like, so let's say, we're fully federally legal, and because we're seeing a lot of our headlines these days are, child goes to ER because, finds parents gummies and now the parents in jail and, whatever, we're seeing that all the time. A lot of these overdose stories, but things like, let's see here, headlines we want to see. So one of the ones that me and my partner came up with was child saved with THC inhaler at T-ball game. Another one was, let's see, multi-trial study concludes medical cannabis dwarfs opioids in pain relief. So having these kind of exercises was helpful to kind of build our confidence for the following day when we were on the Hill. And, Brandy and I had, what we had presented was received well, but for other people that were representing states that they lived in that, weren't necessarily legal, like Texas, didn't really have that same experience. There was a lot of, well, let's see if this Schedule 6 thing is some kind of option. Let's see the language for it. There was a lot more pushback. So it was eye-opening when it comes to like, hey, there's a lot of work that we have to do. And here in Michigan, it definitely was humbling and made me think, Jesus, we really do have a really solid system in place compared to other places. And it's because of the work like Jamie and Rick and Josey, have done over the years. But people in states like Texas and, Indiana are fighting hard. There was a woman that was or is a pharmacist, and she was there, to try to learn more. She ended up getting her master's in marijuana science and technology from the University of Maryland, which there was a good handful of women there that graduated from that program. At the end of the day, like I sincerely hope that this academy continues to happen and a little bit more frequently than once a year. Obviously it wasn't the easiest as far as transportation, but Josey, when she gets her van, this was definitely a road trip that I would suggest trying to make.
I would like to. You're muted, Joseph. You were trying to.
Yeah, I love the mute button, I guess. That's amazing. And I love, it's like when I went to the Drug Policy Alliance conference, it's the same, like, I can't believe how many people are working on the same thing and how many people are still not there. you know. So
Right.
I'm
Right. Exactly.
and to be in a state like North Carolina, like you are, I just is that where you are right now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
God.
Yeah.
And-
So talk about a tolerance break, y'all.
And Josey, if you're interested in seeing more of Rick tomorrow, Mike Brennan, the host of 420 Post, has invited you to come onto their show, which is usually 1 o'clock.
1
Records
o'clock,
at
1 to 2. Yeah.
Okay, I'll get a hold of Mike Brennan for sure. Thank you guys. And
Tom Levine will be our other guest, so you know it's going to be fun.
I love Tom Levine, you guys. I really do.
He is a good dude.
I love him. He will seek me out in a crowd for anywhere. It doesn't matter. And every time I have like 100, like 6 pictures of Cadence and Tom from every picture that from every time they've ever been together. And it's like they love each other so much. It's crazy.
Yeah.
He's also a baby whisperer. I love him.
It's great.
And
So-
Tom is an environmental lawyer. And he just cares about the world and the planet, and he likes to smoke weed too. That's true.
He's got a long history in hemp and cannabis law reform and civil rights.
Board of
Cannabis
Directors
Council,
of-
shit, man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was board.
And Matt Abel have a law firm that all they've done is cannabis for years.
On the MI Normal board as well.
Yep.
So very active guy. And a former head of the Michigan cannabis section of the State Bar Association.
No, true, yeah. So Mike saying will help you get your van. A lot of people haven't caught yet. You've got it sitting outside right now, but funds to pay for it are still needed. So the van exists, but
It's an assumed sale.
Yeah.
I'm
More,
excited. We just put it up. I can't
more
believe
funding
it.
is needed. Yep. That's cool. And it was so cool again to watch you with that time and ease be able to get in and out of the thing. I mean, after watching this to get your automated chair to the to the golf thing was time consuming, took a lot of hassle. It wasn't something you just easily zip in and out of the vehicle or whatever. So.
Yeah, it's quite deep.
A link to the GoFundMe page on the scroller at the bottom.
Yeah. Do we know a good way to get in there?
Oh, this is not my computer.
Katie
Like in
Sprout?
the
There she is.
comments. In the comments.
Yes, I mean, there's just a. I can like scroll a banner too to let people know. Right. You can put it in the comments first, and I'll put it on there.
Here, let me jump on the Facebook link.
And I will say back to Red Setter too, who talked about how if you look at Schedule 2, the stuff that's on there is just stupid when you think that like mushrooms and cannabis are on, and LSD is on Schedule 1.
Well, cannabis prohibition was never logical, so every time you look for it, you're not going to.
It wasn't scientifically, yeah.
No, it was more of a public relations
Analyzed,
and a social control tool.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever was about harm or damage.
So Jamie, is it cool if I give a little update about the labor sector of things?
I would like you to do that, and I also just wanted to throw in that Pride Month is coming up, and diversity in the workplace is very important. So if you wanted to comment on that as well, but please do. Please throw a labor update in there, and whatever else you think about that.
For sure. Yeah, appreciate that prompt there too. That's huge because, what I want to give a little brief update about is True Leave, right? So a little recap, a woman named Lorna McMurray died at a True Leave cultivation facility in Mount Holyoke, Massachusetts in January of last year, 2022. Since then, there was a whistleblower at that facility named Danny Carson. And Danny Carson has since gone on to really latch on to the health and safety issues going on in the cannabis industry, specifically in cultivation. And Danny is taking, organizing to another level and getting creative with it, right? So True Leave, was fined like $14,000 for Lorna's death, and they're allowed to do their own cannabis allergy study, as far as I'm aware of, which is going to start in May. So I think it started this month. And outside of that, there really was no repercussions. Now, the employees at the time of Lorna's death were already trying to unionize, and for obvious reasons, health and safety being one of them. Well, Danny is really kind of taking the reins on getting the message out to workers that what they're experiencing isn't okay, because they found out that Lorna's death is being kept from employees. There's a lot of employees that have worked there for over a year now, or about a year now, that had no idea that her death occurred, which is a big problem. They are being kept in the dark about health and safety issues that occurred. So what Danny decided to do was say, hey, there's a business across the street from the cultivation facility that they ended up befriending. And they were able to get a food truck to come to the parking lot, which is directly across the street from the cultivation facility, and offer and give away free food to cannabis workers at that facility during their scheduled lunch times. Well, that was all said and paid for. This happened last Friday. The night prior, True Leave sent out an email to the workers at that facility and said, hey, guess what? We're also giving away free food at your scheduled lunchtime, and we're going to be doing like the biggest raffle ever to, giving stuff away to all of you guys. And the only way you're going to be eligible for that raffle is if you show up at lunchtime. So it's these kind of strategic moves. Like when I brought up the term union busting, this is something that is considered union busting, because while Danny was across the street with free food and information about an upcoming facility walkthrough or inspection that was coming up at the True Leave facility by NIOS, which is the National Institute for Occupational Health and Safety, they were there giving out information about, hey, you as an employee are allowed to stay there on the premise and ask questions when these inspections are going on. And so because they were trying to inform the employees of their rights, they were approached by the managers on Friday. So during this lunch free food thing, there was a giant group of corporate True Leave folk across the street staring down the food truck and Danny, and eventually beckoned Danny over to have a conversation and demanded to know, who are you with? Who is the UFCW? Are you involved with any union? And Danny had replied, I'm here of my own accord, and I'm here to, inform the employees of their rights in the workplace. That menacing presence really is not helpful for employees who might be trying to organize and just, make their workplace better. So what True Leave was doing on Friday was a form of union busting. And it's really important to talk about what that looks like for all the people here in Michigan and whoever else that might be listening around the US, There's a lot of different stuff that is discussed. And when it comes to diversity within a lot of these, and I don't want to say all by any means, but there's just a big lack of diversity in cannabis, like at the corporate level specifically. When you look at a lot of, people that are salaried, it's generally a lot of men. There's, a larger lack of women. There's women in many other spaces, don't get me wrong, but the lack of LGBTQ presence is huge. There've definitely been workers that I've spoken to that have been discriminated against at work, pigeonholed. Oftentimes, they are also the ones who are recognizing that there's stuff going on in the workplace that might not be, a good thing they're oftentimes some of the first people that will reach out to try to unionize or to try to organize or to try to say, hey, you know, I came from a place of oppression, so I can recognize oppression when I see it. And that's kind of, you know, what some of what we're seeing in the cannabis industry, and not just on the license side. It's, you know,
So
part of culture too.
an employer that's kind of diversity minded, so to speak, has got availability of a larger labor pool, more people, more ideas, more possibilities. I mean, it's just positive to expand. And some places we've talked about how the U.S. Treasury had to expand its search for people to join them to help out with some computer hacking stuff and take their policy of not being able to use cannabis off in order to get to the people that could, you know, really satisfy that position. You know, just meaning, you know, for cannabis people in our history, the LGBTQ acceptance rate along with cannabis was running parallel at a certain point. And there's a historical combination, just, you know, in some of this to reflect on as well when you talk about cannabis industry and stuff. But at large, having a diverse minded employer opens up more opportunities for filling positions competently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're pigeonholing your business by not including everybody. Honestly, I don't understand it. You know, we can only make this industry better by diversifying, right? I mean, the cannabis consumer isn't just one consumer. I was reading on LinkedIn today, somebody's post about like that exact thing, is that there's this kind of pigeonhole mindset where, you know, all cannabis consumers are this, and we're all marketed to in the same aspect. But, you know, there are, and I really don't like bringing up the alcohol thing, but I come from hospitality, so it's kind of hard not to. But there are wine drinkers, and there are vodka drinkers, and there are beer drinkers, and there are non-alcoholic drinkers. And there's a lot of different people out there that want to use this thing. And they're not all, you know, like-minded in that sense. You know, so keeping that diversity in mind is so important as well. Getting people that have been through the shit in positions, in decision-making positions like Josey is fucking important for where we need to be going within the industry.
Yep. I agree. This is an emerging thing to be a little bit more aware for all the things we'd like to see in the seasoned industries would be great timing, but it's been left out of the discussion, you know, a lot more than it should be, as we've had to recognize a couple times. It's really awesome that you're around, you know, bringing these issues to light for a lot of people. You know, I remember that the concept of how labor is going to work never came into our conversation, or, you know, while trying to craft or vision, you know, what this was going to look like in the future. And it feels almost weird now to look back on that. You're right.
You couldn't have included a mandatory unionization policy during the ballot language.
No, I don't know what we would have done. It's never conceived of it, though. Still, like, it's weird that I just didn't think about it in the bigger picture of how it was going to go down or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, what we would have done, I don't really know exactly, if anything. Probably not, to get this thing rolling. Probably that would have been another thing that would have caused more controversy. Probably would have taken the risk on it. You know,
we could afford to lose votes, and with 56% approval, we were probably right about that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, like, you know, the kind of pushed vertical integration, like, I can't imagine how difficult it is to be able to, like, or have to do all of the things from seed to sale, and then have employees along the way, and then have to educate them in all these. There's so much that you have to adhere to being vertically integrated that, you know, yes, I'm an absolute advocate for this, but I see how it can get lost in the fray. But, you know, we're here and we're talking about it now. And, you know, there is science to show that cultivation facilities, you know, it would behoove, you know, the architect, if you will, an engineer, to create a facility that has an environment that is meant to be pest free, so you don't have to get to the point where you have to use remediation and things like that. These are things that there is evidence to show that by putting these already existing solutions in place, we can save lives. Long-term health issues are very
Don't
real.
mind saving some lives as long as it doesn't cost that much.
Oh, yeah. There it is.
Response.
There it is. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we have to weigh the
But in
risk.
cannabis, it doesn't cost more. It actually, because the union, sorry, that might be me. The UFCW is the largest purchaser next to the United States government of health insurance. And so if you unionize these things from the start and already are doing good wages, it makes things cheaper, especially if you're providing health insurance. And so they didn't hold a strong presence here in Michigan. They came out right before COVID, and they did labor peace agreements. That's what they had it right there in there. They worked. It was really more the Teamsters union, but they all pulled out with COVID, and then it went nowhere. It didn't get pushed into the administrative rules. When they came back out, they were gone. A labor peace agreement just says, if you unionize, we won't bust you, which BT dubs, that's the law. So, I mean, okay.
And the law is still broken because it is vague and broad, but having the information and just knowing your rights as a employee and understanding and familiarizing yourself with organizing will get us to the point where we can start establishing standards, and this conversation can start moving on to other shit. Honestly, standards is what we need. It is, what I thought was a part of legalization and licensing. I thought that was already kind of established. Hey, if we're going to be doling out licenses, then we should probably have done the research in, figuring out what's harmful and what isn't to the people that are going to be running these facilities, which is something I really wanted to tie into here, is that there is a House bill in Michigan called House Bill 4322. And that would aim to lower the age of working in cannabis from the age of 21 to the age of 19. If you work at designated license holders or work for a designated license holder, which I don't have the definition of what a designated license holder is, but I see that as an issue because we're already seeing young people getting sick, lowering the age of entry, going into a cultivation facility where respiratory issues are being developed. I don't know if that's a very good idea. However, it's being pushed because there's a lack of people that want to work in cannabis. But that's not necessarily the case. There just aren't a lot of good paying jobs in cannabis right now.
Right.
So
And
that
19 and 20-year-olds will take a less than good paying job, right?
Right, because hey, get your foot in the door, and it also allows for that 19, 20-year-old to be able to consume cannabis, through this particular licensed designated license holder. So
let them consume it. It's
it
not like
allows some. It says right in there that it allows the individual to consume, not distribute, but cultivate. A few other words in there. If they are working on behalf of the designated license holder or designated business. So yes, it does allow consumption for lowering it to 19 if you work for a particular or specific cannabis license holder, which I'm not sure what that.
what would you have to work for that you would have to consume? Because I'm down to work there. Sorry, Ryan.
Retail. If you're going to be selling it, you should at least have some idea of
No
what
way, they
it's
don't
like.
think that way. I think it would be like being serving drinks at as a waiter. You can't drink, but you can serve it. I feel like that would be likely. But
alcohol doesn't have the medical benefits that cannabis does.
Yeah, but there's no room for logic and reasoning and law. Nobody puts that in. That's not what they're thinking.
But
I
the
did. He was
consumption-
promoting that.
That
at
is
the
a reality.
Cala, but
I
I'm
will
trying to
confirm.
remember what he was saying. Remember he was like, Jerry Millen, thank you for telling me your kid should work, whatever.
It's about college students. They can't get their internships in cannabis
Yes.
when they're getting their degrees in cannabis.
Ah, that's what it is. Thank you. It's about
What it
college
sounds
students
like.
getting their internship.
That's in part what it is. Yeah, I've heard that too. But like, oftentimes that happens later on in the curriculum when they're, senior and stuff like that. And usually more.
Right, but they're not 21 yet.
Some of them
a lot
aren't,
of
right.
times internships happen in junior and senior year, and depending on the internship programs and the studies that are happening, or depending on what program they're in, whether it be cultivation, like cannabis marketing specifically, all these programs are now growing, and it legitimizes the industry even further.
I like it. I kind of like it anyway. Maybe there's some safeguards that we need to have in there, but I like when an adult can just make money if they're 18. They're responsible as an adult in many other respects.
And there are programs in other states, like at the University of Maryland, that you don't touch the plant at all in the master's program. So, I mean, there are programs that are succeeding without plant touching. Not saying that's a thing. I just see that this House bill, or I theorize that this House bill doesn't just have to do with the colleges that offer.
Is it Kevin Coleman?
Just for the record.
Okay, I think it might be Kevin Coleman's bill.
It is
Yeah.
Kevin Coleman from Westland.
What is the problem with let's pretend like it was. What is the opposition with the bill?
The fact that the fact that we do not have any standards, any health and safety standards within the cannabis industry, period, right? There are
And bringing more and younger
things
people on without addressing
that
it first. Yeah.
carry over,
Right.
like OSHA regulations and whatnot, but there's nothing being enforced. There are young people getting sick with respiratory diseases, possibly lifelong illnesses that have to do with mold spores. Being
Not cannabis, just a big building working conditions without.
I mean,
you know,
I just feel like there's a very fine line between
without providing PPE in these cultivation facilities properly, opening up a even younger sector of our residents in the state of Michigan, of our children in this industry, or into this industry, I think is very irresponsible, because we have not even come close to nailing down making this a safe industry to work in. Period.
It's a good time to. It's a good vehicle to bring up this issue, and it's going to pass. I think just from what I've heard, but
Michigan specifically has a lot of great operators. We have more. This is a place where we have more consumers than any other state, and we see as a result better products, cheaper prices, and a lot of really good, solid operators. Especially for the fact that with 280E in existence and things not. Obviously, we see a lot of bad MSOs, but a lot of those don't work here like they do in other states, right? And so I feel
doesn't
like
mean that there aren't bad environments that have been that have fostered or festered. Not to say that
I just don't think it's
that
independent
companies were set out to like build it bad. I just don't think that there's enough learning happening. That there's not.
I think this is a good. This bill's going to pass as is, and I like the idea of more people being able to join the workforce potentially, just at large. But this is a good opportunity to bring up these issues and improvements needed, and more awareness needed in a lot of places. I think this bill's got a lot of support. It was last year started getting some support, and then was reintroduced this year, and I think it's probably going to pass, but I think it's a good time to talk about good way to talk about that. Stuff.
It can't be less safe than working in the military or anything else that you get to do at 19.
Yeah. The whole choosing 21 years of age was certainly something that was done in order to get passage of the bill in 2018 and in 2008 as well.
But in terms of serving alcohol, people are under 21. I think there's some emulation of that. Yeah. So it is.
No.
We are at 6. And is Katie still around by chance?
No, but can I talk a little bit about Greenstem just for 2 seconds?
You can, 'cause really appreciate Katie Greenstem and George and the whole family.
Greenstem's in Niles, so if you're going to Chicago, Indiana, gateway to the Midwest, cannabis should be affordable. It should be accessible. The people that are making money off of it should be transparent. And when we legalized marijuana, we always knew that corporate cannabis would come in, but we always hoped that there would be great, good, solid family-owned businesses. And Greenstem takes the cake. They have invested over $20,000 into Gwen, and they have a plan for this year to invest another $20,000. And but it's not just us. They give back to the only women's shelter in town. They've painted a mural in town. They've committed when they came into Niles. They committed to Niles fully. So they committed to a beautification project. They all live in Niles. They could have lived. It's a small town. They could have lived anywhere, and just nobody that owns a business in Niles lives in Niles, but they do, and their kids go to Niles schools, and it was anxious when people were opening up here in my hometown and my stomping grounds, right? Especially because they were moving out, and I didn't want it to be one of these corporate places. But Greenstem has stepped up, and they're always the first to sign up for anything that we do, but also for anything that anyone else does in the community outside of just cannabis. And they're a strong partner at the Great Lakes Expungement Network and a strong partner at the Redemption Foundation.
Helped out a lot with this last fundraiser.
Catch George smoking weed literally fucking anywhere that he's at. That's my favorite part. How many people?
He tells me he can't find a lot of people that want to continue to want to smoke like.
Oh my god, he
can
cannot
Brenda
smoke
around.
Yeah, so he loves B. So that's the thing is that we did like the Hartford Speedway thing, and George just sat down and out smoked everybody under the table, like all different ages. He was just, and then everyone left, and they were like, "I smoked weed with the great guy that owns Greenstem." George is the coolest, but they've always been innovators. Remember that George was the VP of automotive for XM Radio and for Pandora. In the beginning, early 2000s, back when that was brand new, and being on the edge of something that changes the way that people do everyday things is kind of what the Lynch family is all about, right? And that's what they did at Greenstem. So they do a great curbside service. You go there, it's 6 minutes tops average wait time. They service an average of 500 people a day, and remember that Indiana's probably never going to legalize marijuana, but Illinois is legal, and so many people won't pay $90 a cart, and so many people will travel from Illinois through Indiana into these Southwest Michigan dispensaries, and a lot of times it's Greenstem. And so I think this goes back to what Stacey was saying, which is all legalization is not good legalization, but Michigan does it right. And it comes from us writing the law and people who consume cannabis having access to the playing field. And also having administration, was us having Brisboe for so long allowed for people to be heard about, hey, this is what help us grow, or hey, this hinders us. And I don't think I've ever seen any department head of any state be so accessible. And same thing for Hannah. So I'm really grateful to be, here in our Great Lakes state, and grateful to be a part of this community. Thanks for having me.
We should recognize that. Of course, we always have to disclaimer that we want to continue to make it better. But you're right, we do have some good stuff going on, definitely comparatively. We're not in North Carolina, that's for sure.
Michigan's the best. And we have more coastline than any other state. And honestly, when you're talking about possession limits and the ability to get involved in the market and the discounts involved in social equity.
Say Minnesota's got a good law, but they still didn't match our possession amounts and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They have home cultivation.
And that comes from consumers creating the law, and also from this blueprint that Michigan had already created, that Chuck and Tim had created, which was, hey, Michigan is ready to legalize marijuana. Here's the statistics. And
Yeah, by way of getting localities to pass it and then showing
and
people here
normalizing
want
it
it,
through
right?
that.
Yeah.
But also, it goes back to none of this would have happened if we didn't have good operators in the beginning. So Passerini and of course Basor and people that were doing it right to
Hey.
show, hey, this is working. This is great. So I'm so
You
grateful.
A
got-
couple people here that came even before that list that you just mentioned.
That's
you know,
right.
and a
We-
rare opportunity
you know,
to recognize
forget
our.
it.
It's Big Daddy, of course. And you know, I could go through all of them, but when we're talking about Michigan marijuana and the way that it is, and it could be better, sure, but it absolutely could be worse. And if you go and buy weed in California and Colorado, it's not legally. You know, I haven't found anything that's nearly as it hits home. And there's lots of great quality cannabis, and it's on the market right now. And if you can't find it, it's just not at that dispensary, right? I'm grateful to be a part of a community that cares not only about the community itself, but about the products that they're putting out. There's a reason that people travel to Michigan for cannabis. And soon, you know, when you get a ticket to Colorado and they're like, oh, you're going to buy weed, huh? That's what it's going to be like for Michigan. I can see it. I'm grateful to be a part of it. So,
Right on.
thanks.
Yeah, so am I. We should celebrate that a little bit, even though we keep on working to make things better. All right, Stace, really appreciate you coming on, giving us an idea of what's happening in DC, and of course addressing an update on labor issues, and we got to throw in the importance of diversity and that kind of stuff. But any other comments you want to make, get in before we end, direct people to a site or anywhere?
Yeah, appreciate it again, guys, big time. Yeah, you can go to cannabisworkersresource.com, where we just launched our job journey. So if you work in retail, cultivation, or processing, and you really don't feel like you're getting everything that you need to, you can go and click on a job journey. And by the time that you're done reading through and following all these links, you'll have a better idea of what you're doing on the job, and hopefully be safer and can direct patients to quality medicine and all that good stuff. So yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we had a few people on. Adam, you got a few words in before technical difficulties took him out. It was cool to have Ryan on earlier too. Who else? Do we have anybody else?
Katie.
Well, yeah. Katie was with you. She's now not there to say goodbye to us, but that was also very cool. And if you don't mind, Rick, a couple minutes over, but it was worth it. Wrapping us up.
No, I hope you got the feel good sensation that I got when we listened to Josey and Katie talk about the success story that is the van. We were given an exclusive tour of it today. That itself was worth the price of admission when you watched the Jazz Cabbage Cafe show. But wrapped around in that was an awful lot of history, an awful lot of positivity, and some outlooks, and some discussion about future actions, and a great story about going to Washington, D.C. and making good things happen. So hopefully you'll be inspired to participate in the GoFundMe. You'll be inspired to participate in activist groups like ASA and Michigan Normal. And you'll continue to take positive actions in order to affect the lives of other cannabis consumers around you. So Jamie's on mute, which is how the show should always end.
I was just congratulating you, saying really nice things about you. So I will retract, but you can, whoever can read lips can confirm. Now another good one, Rick. Appreciate it, and appreciate everybody being on the show. We'll do it again next week. Thanks, everyone. See you later.